red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. See them wiping their eyes in their rear view, like black hole sun in the sky. Why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladders for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do. If you thought you...
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?
masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Ripe for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?
Mother and baby on razor's edge. Don't give a shit what your paper said. Economy creeping up out of red.
Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously, we're fucked. We are fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
I think as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Ian?
Cheers and salutations. Welcome if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel, what would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
the issues that we talk about. Listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
AIN News.
What up, fam? It's another episode of AIN News with me, Reef Breland, and my co-host, as always, Collin Radix-Carter. Kipper, how are you?
The usual. Tired.
Tired.
After working out.
Yep. Oh, you gotta go big and strong.
Huh?
More
like trying to lean out.
Well, you could do both.
Well, strength is not hard for me, I guess, with my body type. I can gain muscle easily. But it's just,
you gain muscle and then lose fat, and then eventually, you got your bikini body ready. Like,
that's the part that the losing fat. I don't know, but
well, we brought some stories this week. We did it. We brought 4 stories, as we do every week. At least, what'd you bring?
Sometimes 5. On occasion, on a rarest of occasion, maybe more, depending on the week and how motivated we feel. I did think about a 5th. But considering right now I have a lot of stuff going on, given that it's busy season for me in terms of ending the school year, and then I should be taking a class that I need to do that I haven't done anything for yet, and I have like 2.5 weeks to do the work. So I'm kind of a little stressed out about that a little bit. So I'm kind of freaking out, but glad I'm here with you all, with the fam, and talking more about the destruction of this country and this planet. But it's all good, right?
It's
everything's
fine.
gonna be just fine, right?
Fine. This is fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
This is fine. It's fine. Well, we're talking about how everything's fine, and it's probably not, given this story. So I think more people are talking about this now, but this was kind of a silent story that occurred over. So wait, I think it was over Memorial Day weekend. I think this story. No, actually, it was last weekend. I'm getting weekends confused a little bit, because I've had random days off here and there over the last couple of weeks. But anyway, we meaning the U.S. is sending bombs to Russia. Essentially, is what's going on. Oh no, well no, we're not sending bombs to Russia. We're sending bombs to Ukraine to bomb Russia. There we go. So as you can see, those are the cast of characters in the thumbnail. So we'll talk about that first, and then later on tonight, we're going to talk about BIBI. Well, actually, we're not going to talk about BIBI. Really, we're going to talk about more about the culture in Israel in terms of BIBI's become the scapegoat as to why everything is happening in Gaza right now. And you guys know this. You guys are very smart. You guys are very intelligent. And we've also reported on, the reality of Israel and how Israel came to be really on this channel / show for really, well, even prior to October 7th, way earlier than that. So we're going to go into it a little bit more in terms of how do people really feel in terms of what BIBI, Israelis, in terms of what they feel that how BIBI is doing or not doing. So we're going to go into that a little bit later on tonight. And then what did you bring to the table?
I brought a article by Caitlin Johnstone about celebrities and their silence on Palestine. We're going to get into some of that. and just celebrity in general. And then I brought a story by Kit Clarenberg about British spies and intelligence service using operatives in Palestine, specifically Palestinian refugees themselves. So we're going to get into that. A little Mint Press article. But yeah, that's what I brought. So, good stuff. But, yep, as always, we always appreciate some donations. YouTube has demonetized us, so you have to go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, scan the QR code on your screen, or put !donate in the chat. If you want to send us super chats that way, you can. But yeah, we're moving pretty close to our goal. We're at 93%. We got a big donation from the Yeti Jesus. He was very generous and made that go up quite a bit. But appreciate him.
So so given that, so we have about, I'm just trying to do the math.
Probably around
like
93% of $1,000.
Yep. Yeah, so about under $100 left.
Yeah.
To get Jesse his new computer. So maybe we can do it tonight. Who knows?
It's possible.
But we are talking, so Reef and I are talking about, we probably will have another fundraiser. We'll just have to do a little research into that, but we'll let you guys know. But mostly it will be just for tech that folks in the network can use on the ground if we're going to record stuff. Just have it be a little more reliable besides our phones. So basically trying to put together at least, I guess, 2 kits that for people to use. So that will probably be coming up. So we'll have to do research and then we'll let you guys know. And
I would love to do more on the ground stuff. In-person interviews, that kind of stuff would be nice to do. So we'll keep an eye out for that kind of stuff, how much that's going to run us. So, renting some of that stuff may be an option. But yeah, we're going to go research that and let you guys know. But, you can always follow us on other platforms, rumble.com/she/Indie News Network. Rockfin is also in the description below at indienews.network. Follow our Linktree there. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. You can leave a little monthly dono if you feel so inclined. You can always follow us on Substack, get new articles we're putting out, indienewsnetwork.substack.com, or just, shoot us some bucks directly at Cash App, $Indie News Network on Cash App. Very easy. I got to update this. I know there's some new people to be added to this list, so remind me, and I will make sure to put your name up here if you donated. But, and usually we try to feature you in the ticker that is running below us. Anything else we need to go over?
Yeah, and also,
Go ahead.
So to the chat, we actually, well, since it's basically summertime now, but then, for me, given my schedule, at least through mid-August, I will have some more free time. Since I'll be off, I'll probably be doing a lot more stuff with AIN then, so Reef and I have been talking about folks who we can interview, and I think for us this summer will be a lot easier to do that, especially for me with my schedule. I have a little bit more flexibility, especially if we are looking to interview people abroad. So let us know in the chat, or if you just want to send us a DM for the network at Get Indie News on X, formerly known as Twitter, who you would like us to interview or talk to. Really over the summer, but ideally like at any point if we can manage it. So so let us know in the chat if there's anyone in particular. Reef and I are trying to create a list right now. So we're definitely trying to reach out to we'll definitely reach out to those folks starting in July. So maybe just so one-off interviews or pre-recorded stuff like that we're able to do when we have a little bit more time. But yeah, let us know in the chat anyone who are interested in having on the show, because either way it's been a while. T Morgan says Macklemore. I highly doubt that could be possible. Although
Macklemore, if you're watching, feel free to come on, bro.
Right.
Like,
Although,
hey, look at that! A $10 dono from the Accord Lord. Appreciate you. Hopefully, you're keeping that Honda in operating condition. But ready for our first story? Ready?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, the U.S., as the title says, gave the green light to give Ukraine bombs in order for them to bomb Russia. So this kind of went under the radar last week in light of Trump's conviction. So, and actually, funny enough, as I was saying that, because we always say, if there is big news that people are kind of clamoring around, what's really going on? So I think I said that to you privately. And I don't think we definitely weren't the only ones who had the same idea. So shout out to Nick from RBN/Hotspot, who also basically kind of called this out. So he did a short on Hotspot that gives a little bit of information regarding what the sitch is regarding this funding. So go ahead, Nick.
Joe Biden has finally done it. While America was distracted with the Trump show trial, we had Biden that gave Ukraine the A-OK to use U.S. weapons on the Russian mainland. This is a move that the United States has resisted thus far, because providing weapons that will be used to strike Russia is such an obvious major escalation. And don't buy these bullshit headlines that are trying to paint the picture that somehow Biden was pressured to do this. This has been a strategy that NATO has been doing since the beginning of this conflict. The United States will draw a red line. A bunch of U.S. proxy goons in Europe will push the United States to change their red line, and then Biden would fold under pressure. We've seen this so many times. Quick question for all the NATO psychopaths. How does allowing Ukraine to strike into Russian territory change the trajectory of this war? It does not. The same way that sending the M1 Abrams tanks and fighter jets to Ukraine didn't change the war. Once you realize that NATO and the West, their only goal is to boost military-industrial complex profits and not win, everything starts to make more sense. The West has been very open about the fact that they are using Ukraine to test their weapons. Now they're trying to see how well their long-range weapons does against Russia. Joe Biden and the West are willing to risk World War III for a boom in the military-industrial complex. So Nick, who do you think is winning the war between Russia and Ukraine? Raytheon!
Shout out Hotspot.
Shout out Hotspot and RBN and Nick. And shout out to our friend, Chris Legion, who also had a similar thought, but he tweeted, "At this point, Russia has the right to declare war on the United States. This is a full indictment to spark war with Russia. Putin has hinted that U.S. or NATO weapons used to attack Russia will result in a retaliatory strike on those particular nations." So he linked to this article, which we are going to read, to shout out to friend of the show, Brett Wilkins. Also, any media awards honoree.
Speakers.
Thank you. So he writes, Biden reportedly gives Ukraine, not reportedly, he did, okay to strike Russia with U.S. weapons. One high-ranking Vatican official warned that the new policy could lead to an escalation that no one will be able to control.
Is
So,
the Vatican weighing in? I'm sure we'll figure that out.
I mean,
but sure.
Sure. U.S. President Joe Biden has partially lifted his administration's ban on Ukrainian use of U.S.-supplied weapons to strike targets inside Russia, according to Thursday reporting, a policy critics have called a provocative escalation of the 27-month war. Citing people familiar with the move, Politico reported that Biden has quietly given Kyiv the green light to carry out limited cross-border strikes near Kharkiv, I guess is how you say it. Kharkiv, as Russian forces menace Ukraine's second largest city.
Yep.
The president recently directed his team to ensure that Ukraine is able to use U.S. weapons for counter-fire purposes in Kharkiv, so Ukraine can hit back at Russian forces hitting them or preparing to hit them, one American official told the outlet. The official said that Biden's prohibition on long-range attacks inside Russia has not changed. They gave a similar statement to The Hill. The number one priority for U.S.-Ukraine policy should be avoided escalation to direct U.S. conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who ordered the invasion of his neighbor in February 2022, warned Tuesday that any attacks by Ukrainian forces on Russia using Western-supplied weapons can lead to serious consequences. Biden's reversal came amid divided opinion in his administration over whether to allow Ukraine to use U.S. arms to attack Russia. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken favored the more aggressive policy, which is supported by major NATO allies, including Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and Canada. Anti-war voices sounded the alarm over Biden's shift, with Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin saying, "I think this possibly should concern everyone who cares about the fate of our world."
Yeah.
It could lead to an escalation that no one will be able to control, he added. Defense Priorities, a Washington, D.C.-based foreign policy think tank, said on social media that the number one priority for U.S.-Ukraine policy should be avoiding escalation to direct U.S. conflict with a nuclear-armed Russia. When the U.S. should be exercising its diplomatic power, it is instead entrenching itself deeper into a war Kyiv is unlikely to win, the Koch brothers-funded organization added. So any thoughts, Reef?
I mean, I've seen a ton of stuff recently about this, mainly because, France is also having this problem, right? There's a few things that are essentially like, Russia stating that if France sends, fighter jets there and they attack Russia, then they'll attack France, right? That kind of stuff. I've also seen something along the lines of Ukrainians saying that a lot of the training that's being sent over there is by U.S. military with no, war experience, right? So it's like the training is dog shit from what they're saying, which I find somewhat humorous. But I think I sent you this tweet last night, right?
You did, yes.
So
you
Douglas
can read
McGregor.
it if you want.
Ukraine strikes Russia with Western weapons. Here we go. Just shortly following the Biden administration's authorization for Ukraine to employ American weaponry against Russia, Kyiv swiftly acted on this newfound liberty to target a military installation across the border, utilizing U.S.-manufactured artillery system, as indicated by a member of Ukraine's parliament. Yehor Chernev, the deputy chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament's Committee on National Security, Defense, and Intelligence, closed on Tuesday that Ukrainian forces had successfully neutralized Russian missile launchers with a strike in the Belgorod region, approximately 20 miles into Russian territory. The operation employed a high-mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS, he affirmed. This marks the inaugural instance of a Ukrainian official openly acknowledging the use of American weaponry to engage targets with Russia subsequent to President Biden's rescindment of the prohibition on such action. So, yeah.
So basically, they got their toys and decided to use them right away.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. Ukraine is losing badly, and maybe you can understand this because I honestly, like, since we haven't talked about Ukraine in a minute, and honestly, like, I'm not as familiar with Ukraine as you are.
Yeah.
So right now they're losing, and right now, given what's happening in Gaza, I'm not getting the thought of Biden like releasing, essentially giving them the green light to bomb Russia now, especially given this is election season. Like, you're already doing shit in terms of what's happening in Palestine. Now you're trying to escalate a war with Russia. Like, maybe you can understand this better than me. Like, what do you think is the thinking behind?
I think there's two like thought processes here, right? A, the old way of thinking about this, like Bush and Daddy Bush and all that stuff, where it's like, if you won an election, start a war, right? And the American public will let you finish the war, right? That's the classic move. Having said that,
which I think argue, right? Go ahead.
Well, the other thing is similar to what Obama did before Trump got in office, right? Which is put a ton of NATO forces alongside Russia and then let Trump do either he's got to pull out, right? Which then they'll yell at him for, or he's got to ramp up stuff, which they'll yell at him for. So either way, it screws over the next administration, essentially.
Right.
They're forced to either capitulate or...
So it's almost kind of saying subtly that they want to lose. That's what it's kind of saying to me.
Yeah,
like, I think it's kind of their way of saying, throwing in the towel and basically being like, yeah, we're done. So let's just do whatever we can and let Trump deal with it. And for Trump, it's going to be a lose-lose situation for him, given that he's known to be somewhat friendly with Putin. And if he pulls out, then people are going to go attack him for it. Right. Or if he escalates, then, as you said, I think that definitely makes sense. He's going to, I can argue that the media will kind of turn on him, even though the media has been pro-Ukraine all this time. But they'll flip it on the switch, given that it will be Trump.
I mean, I think they're under the assumption that Trump will back off that war, right? So, it depends on who he pulls into his cabinet. But, I mean, if it was similar to the ones last time, I don't think they have a problem with it. So, we'll see. But I think that's part of this. It's also, look, NATO's trying to fight a war on multiple fronts right now. They're fighting it in Israel. They're fighting it in Ukraine, Africa. The empire is thin on all fronts. So I think you're seeing the rules of engagement change. Hopefully, they feel like we'll buy them more time. That's part of it. Where it's like, if they can strike within Russia, that also puts Russia on the back foot, right? Either Russia has to escalate that, which then they blame Russia, right? Because it'll be another victim, it'll be unprovoked whatever, right? Even though we know that U.S., France, multiple other countries have supplied weapons that are now attacking Russia directly. That's pretty much what that's going to be. So, there was a title of an article I thought about bringing the other day where it's like it's another endless war that we now have to fund and keep up with, which really no change in that front is going to happen. Russia could drop 1,000 tanks on them next week and be done with it. So, Russia's been kind of holding their cards. So we'll see. But, yeah. Well, you brought this, I think, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna end the segment with how we started. So we started with Nick. We're gonna end with Rome. So Rome, I think, kind of called this out fairly well. So let's see what he says. So go ahead.
We got him, y'all. We got him. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. But is he going to prison? The man can still become your president. So what did you actually get out of this? See, while you guys were paying attention to the stage and the puppets that was talking while they put on a show of political theater, the Biden administration just gave Ukraine the okay to use U.S. missiles on Russia. So we got him. We got him, y'all. But what did you actually get? Nothing. The man can still become your president, and you are a step closer to World War III. I wish you guys actually paid attention to what's going on and not what they are showing you. What they're showing you is what they want you to see.
Yeah.
That's about right.
And again, I mean, it was Trump got all the press last week, but no one was talking about this. I think even I think more people are now talking about it now. I think Due Dissonance, did a segment on this today, but I caught wind of this since last week. And to Rome's credit, I think he called this out last week. So, but the idea that this story, which I think is the bigger story and probably the bigger deal, because Trump is still going to run for president, that his being convicted, is not going to hurt him. If anything, it's just going to help his chances of winning the election. Meanwhile, Biden secretly, is funding Ukraine against what he should be doing in order to escalate a war with Russia, which, again, Ukraine is not going to win that war, but it's another opportunity for the MIC to boost their funding, being able to sell more of their toys to Ukraine, and then escalate with a war with Russia that we really do not need right now on top of everything else that is happening in the world. It's almost like we're trying to be the piece of shit country in the world that everybody just wants to hate at this point. It's, and meanwhile, all of this money is going out the door. And what have we gotten really collectively as people in this country? Now prices are going down. And that was actually a story that I was thinking of doing. We put that was on the chopping block. But the idea that a lot of these corporations now just decide all of a sudden, oh, we actually going to cut the costs on items in our stores, either temporarily or permanently, because people are struggling, so you've been price gouged this whole time since the pandemic, and now they decide to lessen costs of items that you need because, again, election year. So they're now doing all of this stuff quietly. Meanwhile,
I mean, there's a whole lot of
just going out the door
for scarcity right now too, right? You can go all the way back to River of Melted Butter. They've been burning fucking food places and chicken facilities and all that stuff has been, and now with bird flu on top of that, that's supposedly coming. I think you're going to see more of that too, where and the blame will not be on any of the actual things causing that problem. So,
right.
And the capitalism will just want you to throw money at it to fix it. So, the horizon doesn't look bright yet, but, meanwhile, foreign powers might decide to stand up and do something about it. So, we'll see. But, hang on to your boots, people. So, but anyway, talking about this stuff is why we're demonetized. You can go to ko-fi.com/indie news network if you want to donate to us. Scan that QR code on your screen. Put !donate in the chat if you want to leave us a live chat. You can also go to Rockfin and Rumble. Links in the description below. Support us on other platforms. And if you can't do that, just like and subscribe. Very easy. Share this stream. We're heavily suppressed. Any little bit of that helps. Leaving a comment supposedly does things. All that stuff to help the algorithm. Help us get to 2K. We're almost there. We're like less than 40.
31 subs away.
Cool.
From
so
2K.
Hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, thanks for watching. All right. Over to Rockfin and Rumble. Check that. Anna said Rockfin was having issues.
Rockfin is having, yeah.
Yeah, so you're welcome to head on over to Rumble and Amirs if you appreciate that. I'll link that for you on the Rockfin if you want. But who else was here? Rockfin doesn't properly support or promote their creators. Total amateur hour. Yeah, they definitely have some issues. But we
also make sure you like the stream. I see that we have 19 people like it, but only 33 people watching. So let's even that out, please. Yeah.
And if you're over on Rumble, leave us a comment. Let us know you're not a lizard person. Use those opposable thumbs. Type. Get in that chat. Do some stuff. Engage with things. Is a fun time. All right. On to my story. We're going to talk about some celebrities. Everyone's favorite topic and subject, but I think you'll enjoy this one. So the always lovely Caitlin Johnstone, that Consortium News loves to share now. She writes, "The silence of the artist. Celebrities are reluctant to criticize the U.S. centralized empire because they benefit from it directly." So we're going to talk about some folks. I should have grabbed that. You have it in our, I think in our chat up here that I can also grab. Which I will do. Cool. That'll be ready for when I can use that. All right. So Caitlin writes, "For the last 8 months, people have been expressing frustration and confusion about the reluctance of celebrities to use their immense platforms to speak out against the U.S.-backed slaughter in Gaza, but it's not really a mystery why this happens. Celebrities are reluctant to criticize the U.S. centralized empire because they benefit from it directly. It's actually a very important aspect of imperial narrative control, how all of our society's largest and most influential voices are intimately dependent on the political status quo upon which the empire is built. Fame and fortune come as a result of being elevated by the wealthy owners of media production platforms like film studios, record labels, TV and news media, and those extremely wealthy people have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo upon which their wealth is premised." So, Caitlin put this in here, which I think is an important thing to discuss, right? So this is join in on the Digitine by participating in Blockout 2024 by blocking celebrity influencers on all social media accounts. We do this so they don't earn ad revenue. So you've been seeing things about this, Collin? I do believe. Hopefully you've blocked some celebrities yourself.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Yes, I have.
Okay. Well, let's let this guy explain
Block
stuff.
celebrities on social media so they don't earn ad revenue from you.
TikTok users are calling for a mass block on celebrities who aren't using their platforms to speak up about social issues, mainly Israel's months-long war on Palestine's Gaza.
Block them until they support Palestine. We control celebrities' money. Their currency is our attention and data. Our first assignment, meaning the first celebrity that we're going to mass block until they speak up in support of Palestine, is Kim Kardashian.
Some TikTokers are sharing their
Free
list of
everybody,
celebrities to
she
block in
fucking
an
said,
effort to hold
dude.
them accountable for their silence and push them to use their platforms to speak up about the atrocities happening in Gaza.
So I wanted to share my block list and give you my reasoning for blocking these celebrities and influencers. We have Justin Bieber. I will never forget that he accidentally posted a picture of Gaza and said standing with Israel.
Many have also called out celebrities for attending the high-profile fashion event, the Met Gala, while Israel ramped up its bombardment of Palestinians trapped in Gaza's Rafah.
This is genuinely so dystopian.
These people are living on a different plane of reality than the rest of us. They aren't even affected by the same political and economic issues that matter to us because rich people will always have the means to circumvent them.
So, any questions?
No. We've talked.
Go ahead.
I talked about this with you privately, but it's very interesting now. All of a sudden, I think within the last 2 weeks, we've seen an onslaught of celebrities now basically being like, "Free Palestine!" Like for example, I think last week, those of you who know of the Try Guys.
Yeah, look at that. Another donation from Baser Maternal Rage for $5. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Says Big Poor Unite.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I was saying that like the Try Guys had a fundraiser for Palestine that Hassan Piker, I believe, happened to attend.
Sure.
You know, this was within the last week or two. So now all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of these, not even like these major celebrities, but like I would say these mid celebrities, especially within the YouTube sphere, are now all of a sudden now on board of actually now being a little more verbal in saying, giving their support to Palestine when people have been screaming at them for months prior to say something and they wouldn't. So, but I think that TikTok basically kind of calls it out, is that people are now blocking them. And as they say, we don't give them the attention, we don't give them money. This is, and I have to stop doing this. Like, you see all those Zionists on Twitter X that are basically tweeting to get you all riled up, myself included, which I'm guilty of.
Yep.
They're doing that to get money. Like, the more attention that they get, the more revenue they get.
Yeah.
So
the more impressions their stuff
it's
gets.
in your right. So it is in your best interest if you see any of that bullshit, basically just to block it, just so you're not giving them the attention and more importantly, ad revenue. So you know, that just goes for basically for any any of these quote unquote celebrities or, you know, micro celebrities, especially seeing them online. But that's why they tweet the way that they do, to rile you up so that you would respond. So, but yeah, like, so it's just kind of funny that now all of a sudden, like, it's okay when for the last few months they've been silent, or they've been doing like silent protests, like with the pins that we saw at the Grammys, or like maybe some fashion thing,
or
you know, like
stuff like this. You know, this fucking shit where it's like, we're gonna dip our toes in the water and see if we can get away with shit. But here's the fucking terrible DJ Khaled,
Palestinian.
Who is Palestinian.
That's right, Palestinian. My mother is from Ramallah. My father's from Mizrah Sharqiyya. Big up Jerusalem. Straight from Palestine. I requested my favorite meal called maklubet. All right, check it out, check it out, check it out. Maklubet. This is the best ever. Wow. Look at this. Look at this.
Now,
straight from Palestine.
Imagine you're in Palestine now, Collin. You're, I don't know, in the middle of Ramallah. You've had to risk life and limb to get a bag of flour. And this fat fuck, don't worry, I'm a fat fuck, I can say that shit, is fucking out here posting a fucking, I don't know, 2 kilos worth of fucking rice. Like, what are you doing, homie? Fucking...
Congratulations, you played yourself.
I mean, you really did. You really did. Anyway, I don't want to give that guy more airtime than he deserves, so... But, yeah. Just craziness. So, Caitlin continues, those who are threatening to the status quo are therefore not elevated to celebrity status, and the ones who get rich and famous either A, understand this acutely, or B, are too shallow and vapid to have any interest in rocking the imperial boat. Nobody becomes a superstar all on their own. It requires an extensively collaborative relationship with many individuals, and many of the most important of these are in positions of great wealth and power that have no desire to see socialism or anti-imperialism threaten their kingdoms by gaining a foothold in the political realities of their nation. This creates an impressively thorough gatekeeping system which filters out any clear-eyed rebels who might otherwise shine their way to the top. Of course, the filtration system isn't perfect. Sometimes someone sneaks through, or more likely is waved through, and then has a political awakening after achieving stardom. Kind of like this guy, right? Roger Waters, Pink Floyd fame. We the people are with you. We must resist the genocide, or the existential battle for the human soul will be lost.
You have seen all the pictures coming out of Rafah this morning. One thing is clear, when this is all over, Israel is going to have to apologize, not just to the Palestinians, but to the whole of the rest of the world. Say we're very sorry, we got it all completely wrong, and we are now leaving. Okay, we'll go back to Eastern Europe or the United States or wherever we came from, and leave these people, the Palestinian people whose land this is, to, if they can, rebuild and live in peace, which is what they deserve. In a state, whatever it's called, hopefully Palestine, that will have equal rights for all its citizens, equal religious, political, civil and human rights from the river, Jordan, to the sea. Goodbye, Israel. It's over.
Bye-bye, Israel!
Clear, I don't wish to be misunderstood. I'm not suggesting the continuation of war or another war. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm suggesting is, this is what my mother would tell you. Very wise woman, my mother. My mother would tell you that the time has come for you, Israelis, Israel, the state. The time has come for you to do the right thing. You are a failed state. It's over.
So, you know, Roger Waters, killing it as always. Like, your audio mix could be a little better, bro. Turn that music down a touch. Just a touch. Could be fine. So, Caitlin continues, for every Susan Sarandon and Roger Waters, there are hundreds of enthusiastic celebrity supporters of the status quo, and 1,000 others who just stay silent on all matters of real importance. Just making someone a multimillionaire and giving them a cushy lifestyle is enough to make them loyal to the political status quo of the land. The mere fact that the empire is capitalist and allows the wealthy to live like gods ensures the most people who ascend to stardom will be heavily biased in favor of the system that allows for that lifestyle, and everything they say will publicly reflect this. This gives the empire a massive propaganda bullhorn, which creates an information landscape where all the biggest voices speak as through the system is working perfectly, and the voices of all the ordinary people whose experience tells them otherwise are drowned out. When Macklemore rapped about how the music industry's quiet, complicit in their platform of silence about Gaza, he asked, what happened to the artist? What do you got to say? And this is the answer. What happened to the most influential artists is that they stand too much to gain from supporting the status quo politics of the empire and stand too much to lose by opposing it. And that's why the mainstream artists of today are so artless. How much depth and profundity can you express if you're compartmentalizing away from reality like that? How authentic and meaningful can your art be while you are duty-bound to help preserve the status quo of mind-controlled dystopia where everything is fraudulent and everything that draws human beings to art in the first place needs to be sacrificed to retain celebrity status? Truthfulness, sincerity, rebelliousness, sensuality, inspiration, aliveness, that wild connection with something mysterious and strangely sexy, which crackles just below the surface of everything. All that needs to be flushed down the toilet to become a celebrity guardian of the information interests of a globe-spanning, U.S. centralized empire, to live like a king, but you'll also have to sacrifice everything inside you that makes life worth living. We are ruled by weird, phony freaks in Washington and Virginia who collaborate with weird, phony freaks at the top of the corporate world, and the rule is enforced by weird, phony freaks in New York and Los Angeles who use their celebrity status to help create artificial mainstream culture that is mindless, heartless, soulless, and completely uninterested in the emergence of a healthy world. That is why celebrities are silent on Gaza today. Anything to add, Care Bear?
I almost feel, in a way, Macklemore, in his way, made Palestine cool to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, I've noticed since his video, Heinz Hall, that more celebrities are starting to be a little bit more open about talking about Palestine. There's the musical artist, I think you showed me this, Kehlani, who had Palestinian imagery in her song, I guess.
Yeah.
As I said, there was...
few people have since come out. SZA, I think, did some stuff. But yeah, just... I mean...
Now, granted, and I don't want to knock celebrities who have been speaking out for Palestine from the very beginning. We're not talking about them, but we're talking about now. And we've read, and we did an article on Caitlin who mentions this, but she was referring to college students, though, that when something becomes, you don't want this to become a trend or cool, because then that you're done. This is what this is now. It's now cool or trendy to be pro-Palestine. Whereas, this really shouldn't be a trend in a way that, especially given that how social media works, is that it can be cool for 1 second and then it's not the next.
Right.
Like, the idea of this has been perpetuated from really over the last 100 years plus in terms of neocolonialism, imperialism, and just straight up racism. That's the kind of stuff that these celebrities are not going to necessarily talk about, but it's the idea or the illusion that, that they care. They really don't. It's just the idea of, I care more about my money, and I care more about my fame, and I care more about people noticing me and watching me. And if I lose that, that's going to affect my bottom line. So I better say the cool stuff that I know Gen X especially would be into to kind of keep my profile alive. That's really all this is.
Yeah.
So, but given that, like even with DJ Khaled, like what he did, that was just disgusting in every single way. So like that's the worst, the extreme worst that you can do. Just having a huge plate of food and supposedly eating that by yourself. I don't think he did.
Well,
but
the
idea that you're doing that while your own people are literally dying of starvation.
Yeah.
It's just really
it seems very
awful.
Like why, of all the things to do with that, to have that, to bring food involved with a starving country is just ridiculous. But yeah, I think, as well as like normal celebrity space. I think, you know, the political space definitely have its case of celebrities, and I think a lot of the problems with that are, you know, ego related. And I brought Christopher Lee to talk about some of that I think will behoove some of the people in the space that are paying attention, and, you know, to see what he is talking about. So this is from the
Who are these people?
Depressed Bergman. Hey, look at that. Another $10 donation. Banger Palestinian artist Nemesis. We'll look into that. They leave that Spotify link there for us. I'll go check that out.
Okay.
So this is Christopher Lee. He says the most dangerous thing that a young actor or actress can do is to believe their own publicity.
10 years. And I'd worked in all sorts of places, all over Europe in different languages, singing, acting, sweeping the stage, working in rep, working in the theatre. In other words, learning, something that sadly, few young actors and actresses are prepared to do these days. So many of them are stars before they even make their first film. And you know when you look at them on the screen that they are looking in a mirror, absolutely in a mirror. And it's beginning of a lifelong romance. And their hand is out underneath the mirror, out of shot. Because that's what they want, rich. To be rich and famous immediately, which is terribly sad and extremely dangerous. The most dangerous thing that a young actor or actress can do is to believe their own publicity. Because shelf life, 10 years. If you're a star at 20 or 22 or 3 or 4, if you haven't got it, if you've got it, if you've got the right instincts, the right imagination, the right powers of invention, if you have something behind you, some sort of foundations of experience and versatility, that's fine. You will go on, you will last. But if you haven't, and the majority has not got these qualities, and you always play the same part basically, or slight variations on it, and that's all you can do, you'll be through in 10 years or even 5, when the public will eventually say, well, you know, they're always doing the same thing. And the moment that happens, it's the beginning of the end. You start at the top of the ladder. There's only one way to go.
So I feel like people in the space should be listening to stuff like that. But yeah, I've got one more video after this. So anything you want to finish this out with?
10 years.
I had another thought in relation to what I was saying earlier, just in the same way that it's becoming cool to be, you know, pro-Palestine. On the extreme end, it's also going to be cool to be pro-Israel as well. Because now granted, that would be like,
you know,
yeah, it will be used, I mean, definitely as a counterpoint, but, you know, for the people like the Zionists in the world who have been very firm in that, and as I said, you know, they're becoming celebrity. Like, we've seen this on Twitter. Like, they're going on these shows to kind of talk about, because it's the idea, it's the illusion of the pro-con issue. So they're going to represent their view. You know, we saw what happened, you know, like, I know you guys were talking, like, in the space we're talking about the thing that Breonna Joy Gray did, you know, like, that went viral, you know, like, to me, and I know I watched Do Dissonance, and I know Russell was at the event, and I think he talked to Bree, you know, after the event. But I mentioned this to you. I don't know why, for the life of me, like, I've had my criticisms of Bree, you know, that has been established. Like, you know, guys know this, she's blocked me on Twitter. But one thing I'll never say is that one thing I can definitely vouch for her for is her intelligence, you know? So for me, it's just kind of like, I don't understand why, and this might be kind of considered for the clout or whatever, about why she would decide to. Now, granted, she may not know. I'll give her some grace. She may not know exactly what she was going into, because apparently that room was basically full. It was very pro-Zionist, including the people on the panel, especially like the moderator, quote unquote. I think his name is Konstantin Kissin. Very pro-Zionist. So she was kind of up against a lot in that regard. That being said, I like Russell mentioned that they asked several people who said no. They did not want to do it. And God, I wonder why. Because we've seen these guys on Twitter, like, there's no reasoning with them. They will lie, obfuscate, and make up any story to kind of fit the narrative to make themselves a victim. And so even for that, in Bree's case, it's just kind of like, you didn't necessarily need to do that. At least if you were going to do it in a more of a fair way, that would have been one thing. But you were up against pro-Zionist panel versus a pro-Zionist audience who basically were looking for you to, not make you look good and to make you look frustrated. And I think really to wear you down. And then even like past that on Twitter, like people were smearing her to heaven again. So it's just kind of like, so there's almost like in that sense too, there's almost like this culture right now that we're seeing on the pro-Israel side of stuff like this that is also working to their benefit too, which is very sick. But in the midst of all of like, kind of like the service level pro-Palestine, pro-Israel type thing, no one's necessarily talking about the root of the issues here in terms of why do people feel the way that they currently do about Israel? Why is it that Palestinians feel the way that they do towards Israel, and maybe by a larger case the world? Like, those discussions are not necessarily being had, I think, in a safe and like coming from a place of learning and understanding way. It's just more or less,
that's what
you're
people
wrong.
are worried about.
Oh no, you're wrong, and just pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah.
And slapping each other around, and not necessarily getting to the heart of this assault, given us what's going on in Gaza.
I think you're seeing that, and you're one of the few to call out grassroots musicians, quote unquote, coming out and exploiting your emotions on things, right? And slipping in little details that shouldn't be there. But I think you're with that Christopher Lee segment. It was the deep understanding and the want for understanding and learning from these artists that are, varied. They're not just on one topic, right? They're not just picking up a bandwagon. That's the things to look out for. So, I appreciate them joining the movement if they're doing so now, but like, also you got a lot of more learning to do if this is what you're jumping onto at this point. So, but having said that, I brought this, so I played this for you not too long ago.
This.
So, but I figured I'd pull it for our audience. So, Raphael says 2 things AIPAC and Biden don't know. Once you're called out by black culture, it's over. The second is black culture is not for sale. So,
yeah,
I
kind of disagree for that.
It can be for sure. But this is L.A. Russell, GC. So, Russell, if you're watching, you're welcome to come on and talk about the subjects that you mentioned here. I'll let you speak.
They say the bomb is getting worse by the day. I deeply empathize from my crib in the bay. I don't want to be another black box online, fake fighting for their lives while I'm enjoying your mind. I thought about it deeply and I think it's finally time. Free all my niggas and free Palestine. I question what words could really do for them. If I won't grab a gun and go and shoot for them. I see the protests and try to root for them, hoping that this war is not a boot for them. Something to step into on they off day, badges to wear on they sleeve, something to claim while niggas grieve, a freedom that we never may achieve. Look at my niggas that's still in chains, look at my niggas that's still enslaved, look at my niggas that's in the grave. All the roads revolution paid. The president invested in the war. They ran out of bombs, we gave them more. The ammo was low, we gave them more. Not hard to guess what it's all for. Mercy is all we implore. Strolling my Explore, I see bodies on the floor. Bombed the hospital, man, they even bombed the morgue. I'm just asking what it's all for. Pray for Palestine and all my niggas in the Congo. And all my niggas been oppressed in the West. It's hard to keep faith not knowing what's next. Pray for Palestine and all my niggas down in Syria and all my niggas that's oppressed in the East. It's hard to keep going not knowing if you gon' eat.
So shout out LA Russell GC, bringing the bars. But yeah, that's all I had to bring for this story. So hopefully it taught you something.
Abby Do in the chat said, that's why hip-hop hardly ever breaks through the gatekeepers to the radio anymore. It was too powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, back in the day, hip-hop meant something. Hip-hop was telling the news, essentially to express the reality of the Black experience, you know, for us to kind of understand what was going on, but for people who were willing to listen, to hear what was going on from our perspective, because our perspectives weren't necessarily being told in mainstream media at that time. And now it's become more capitalized to now where it's basically all twerking and booty shaking and money and pop this ninja and like get that gun and like all this other bullshit and like, and the stories that are not, you might have a mainstream artist that might talk about those issues every now and again, but they use that as an aesthetic for, you know, to sell albums. So it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot for them. But for someone like this guy, you know, you can tell from him, like, and you showed me this a couple of weeks ago, but you were kind of afraid of copyright, so you didn't do it until now. But, you know, these are the people that should be highlighted, you know, especially in the independent media space, in terms of this is just art, the true art that is not getting crossed over. Like, granted, Macklemore kind of did, you know, but Macklemore is a known name. So he has an easier time to break through. Well, he broke through. So he would have an easier time to kind of do something a little more what may be considered controversial. But like this guy, you know, even our own Jesse Jett, shout out to our brother Jesse Jett, you know, like, and you guys know him, like he puts out albums like TikToks like every other day, basically. Like the man is super talented, and yet, and I'll argue, even in our space, he's not like elevated a lot to the point where, you know, he should have a larger following than he has. Now, Jesse is humble about it, and he will say to you, it's not about the fame, it's not about the money, it's about the art of it. And we really respect Jesse for that. But given the work, like, for hell, like, we're trying to raise money for him for a computer, you know, like, his art should be more elevated, definitely in independent media, you know, in terms of what he's trying to say, given the political poetry / spoken word that he does, that really does resonate with our audience for sure. And like, shout out to Kit from Heartlands Media for highlighting Jesse frequently. Shout out to Sabby, who also had Jesse on recently as well. You know, but stuff like this within this space, we're not just commentators, we're artists, we're workers, and like all these stories should be elevated more. And that's why essentially why Indie wanted to create this network, to reflect a lot of those voices in the space, you know. And I think generally we need to do a better job of that to kind of counter the superficiality that we see in mainstream media when it comes to situations like this. Like in terms of, oh, I'm just doing this because I know it's just going to get me the clicks and the likes, versus we're doing this because we have something to say that around stuff that we care about, and that actually does affect us because we're on the ground seeing it, if not experiencing it every single day. So this is life for us. This is meaningful for us, and may not be so for these celebrities who might just look at it from a very privileged bubble.
Yep, makes a lot of sense to me. You know, I enjoy playing Jesse every start of the show, so force people to listen to some good artists, and feel free to send me more. I am more than willing to listen to actual good art. So, you know, we'll take it. But as we said earlier, real voices are demonetized and demonized and pushed outside the norm. So, you know, you can go to codasv.com/indie news network, scan the QR code on your screen, support us directly, you know, help keeps our lights on in this capitalist hellhole. So, you know, if you can't do that though, because you're also one of us poors, you know, just liking and sharing, commenting, leaving a comment, all that stuff, sharing, all super important. We're almost 2K, so, you know, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. You know, otherwise,
I believe
thanks for
someone
watching.
did during that segment, so thank you to whoever that was.
Yeah, appreciate you.
So now we, yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of, Crab did remind me that speaking of Jesse Jett, he will be performing at Due Dissonance live shows this Sunday in New York. So I believe tickets are sold out or whatever for both. But
I wonder if there's another venue we can possibly find for Jesse while he's here. You know? So, while he's over on the East Coast of it. Don't know how long he has, but,
so,
you know, we'll see. But yeah.
So I'm sure we'll get some footage. I'm sure we get some footage from the event that I'm sure we'll be able to play, you know, at some point on the channel. And he's saying Sarah gave $5 and $10. Is that for as donations or?
I don't know. Possibly.
What was that
appreciate
about?
You.
I guess possibly. I guess.
So. Ian Rockton apparently is having issues. Hint card says live stream cannot be played. Wonder why. It seems fine on my end. You know? So maybe it's just Rockton's having issues today. So that is possible. Anyone over on Rumble? INN's over on Rumble. Saying that the stream was not in there. See, they just don't want you to see us, do they? This is why you gotta share and help us out. Make people see stuff. All right. You ready for your story?
Yes. So I think actually that's your segment actually is a good tie into this. Because BIBI has been getting a lot of news over the last few months, especially, and given that now he was invited to speak in Congress, and now there's a hullabaloo of people basically being like, "Oh, I'm going to boycott," you know, going to this speech or whatever. Okay, whatever. So, but he's become the scapegoat for what is happening in Israel, as if he's the cause of it, and he's not. But given what I said about there's this pro-Israel like sentiment that it's actually becoming popular, like they're becoming the people that you almost love to hate. there's a reason for that. So we've kind of talked about it a little bit on the show. It's not the government per se. It's the culture that has been, cultivated by Zionism that has led to a lot of this. And BIBI really is just kind of following through on what his constituents want him to do. The mainstream media doesn't necessarily talk about that too much. So I kind of wanted to highlight that as to remind us that it's not BIBI that's the issue compared to what mainstream media might kind of tell you, like the idea like, oh, if he leaves, then everything will just vanish and like everyone will kind of think normally. No. There is an Israeli sentiment in terms of what is happening in Gaza and how essentially that they are either nothing or second-class citizens and deserve to be destroyed. So I got this article from Foreign Policy, and this was written, I think, 2 months ago, by, I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. I'm sorry, but Meirav Zonzine, I guess is how you say her name, or his name. But the title is, the problem isn't just Netanyahu, is Israeli society. Despite blaming the prime minister, a large majority of Jewish Israeli citizens support his destructive policies in Gaza and beyond. So they continue. When U.S. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, one of the staunchest pro-Israel lawmakers in the United States and the highest-ranking Jewish official in Washington, effectively called for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's ouster on the Senate floor in mid-March, it was a watershed moment for anyone following Israel's role in U.S. politics. Israel has been so sacrosanct in America for so long that the idea that a hawkish Democrat like Schumer would call for regime change in Israel is extraordinary. But the Senate leader's stance is fairly mainstream among Israelis. There's consensus, even within his own party, that elections should be held early. It seems like conventional wisdom in Israel that Netanyahu is dragging out the war for his own political survival, since he knows the moment it comes to a halt, Israel will focus even more resolutely on investigating the failures of October 7th and pushing for earlier elections to vote him out of office.
Well, keep in mind how we've talked about his last election issue, where Israelis got upset at him because he wasn't strong enough, right? And that's what this October 6th thing is too, that because he failed in keeping people safe, failed to get hostages, yada yada, which we know how all that works. They've been ignoring every plea deal that's been made. Is they're gonna put it all on Netanyahu. We talked about blaming on the BB. If you look for that on old AIN and clips, but yeah.
The focus on Netanyahu is a convenient distraction from the fact that the war in Gaza is not Netanyahu's war, it is Israel's war. And the problem isn't only Netanyahu, it is the Israeli electorate. Blame Netanyahu, who refuses to leave Israeli political life despite being on trial for corruption and presiding over the country during the worst catastrophe in its history, has eclipsed the fact that when it comes to Israeli policies on Gaza in particular, and the Palestinians in general, many Israelis are broadly aligned with Netanyahu. By a large margin, they support the current military campaign in Gaza and the government's goal of destroying Hamas, whatever the human toil for Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And we'll get to more in the numbers later. For years, Israelis have been able, through military and economic domination, to disregard the single most pressing issue facing the country, its control over millions of Palestinians. The shock and trauma inflicted by the October 7th attack opened the floodgates even further on what is considered acceptable. A large majority, 88%, of Jewish Israelis polled in January believe the astounding number of Palestinian deaths, which have surpassed 25,000 at the time, is justified. A large majority of the Jewish public also thinks that the IDF is using adequate or even too little force in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Couched with the fact that Hamas forced this war of no choice upon Israel and the people of Gaza, and that Hamas must be destroyed as a matter of Israeli survival, even the threat of imminent famine in Gaza has not provoked opposition to the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to say something?
Nope. Just sounds about what we were talking about earlier.
Yep. Further, in a February poll by the Israel Democracy Institute, around 2/3 of Jewish respondents, 63%, said they opposed the proposal for Israel to agree in principle to the establishment of an independent, demilitarized Palestinian state. Israeli leaders have framed the movement underway internationally for governments to unilaterally recognize Palestine as a state to be rewarded the Palestinians for the October 7th attack. You don't need a poll to discover that support of a two-state solution, much less for Palestinian basic rights of freedom and self-determination, has been steadily declining among Jewish Israelis in recent years, and today is probably the lowest it has ever been. You can just look at the positions of Israel's Jewish political parties. Almost none of them endorse a two-state solution, and the ones in power actively reject it, working fictitiously to thwart it from ever happening. So the idea that Biden and anybody in Congress is saying, oh, we're working on a two-state solution is bogus, because
they're never doing it.
Netanyahu basically has all said quite clearly he's not for it, has never been for it. So, but yet still Biden and others are kind of like, oh, well, that's what we're working toward. So it's a non-starter. In BB's words, it's a non-starter for them. So why are you trying to call out? Why are you trying to push something that you know that your frenemy is saying, I don't want? But anyway, I digress. The thousands of Israelis who are once again turning out to march in the streets are not protesting the war. And that's something I want you guys to think about when you see Israeli protesting in Tel Aviv. It's not for what's happening for the Palestinians. No, fuck them. Except for a tiny handful of Israelis, Jews, and Palestinians, they are not calling for a ceasefire or to an end to the war or for peace. They are not protesting Israel's killing of unprecedented numbers of Palestinians in Gaza or its restrictions on humanitarian aid that have led to mass starvation. Some right-wing Israelis even go further by actively blocking aid from entering the Strip. They are certainly not invoking the need to end military occupation, now in its 57th year. They are primarily protesting Netanyahu's refusal to step down and what they see as his reluctance to seal a hostage deal. At a recent protest in Jerusalem, "We are not our government" signs were front and center, echoing the distinction Democrats are making between the Netanyahu government and its people. But that distinction is misleading. Putting all the blame on the prime minister misses the point. It disregards the fact that Israelis have long advanced, enabled, or come to terms with their country's system of military occupation and dehumanization of Palestinians. That's true of other members of the war cabinet who are often depicted as counterweights or alternatives to the prime minister. It wasn't Netanyahu, but his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, who called for a total siege of Gaza after October 7th. No electricity, no fuel, no food, everything will be closed. It wasn't Netanyahu, but the supposedly centrist president, Isaac Herzog, who implied that every resident of Gaza is there's a ad, I think, in front.
No, it's a stupid program that wants to update.
It wasn't Netanyahu, but the supposedly centrist president, Isaac Herzog, who implied that every resident of Gaza is a legitimate target when he said at the outset of the war that there is an entire nation out there that is responsible. So, so so they've all pretty much said, and we've reported on this many times, they want to eliminate Palestinians.
Yeah.
So Hamas is literally just a scapegoat. Anyway, this rhetoric about civilians not aware or not involved in the October 7th onslaught is absolutely not true. He later said his words were taken out of context. Yeah, fuck that. Incendiary and genocidal language by various Israeli politicians and figures was well documented in South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice late last year,
which we covered.
Focusing on Netanyahu also ignores the rightward drift of the Israeli police politic, Israel body politic, which has normalized racism and nationalism, especially evident in mainstream media's coverage of the war. Israeli news rarely shows the suffering of Gaza, almost never platforms Palestinians, and military journals seldom challenge or scrutinize the IDS version of events. It almost disregards the fact that Israelis are still showing up for reservist duty without question, almost 6 months into the war, despite distrusting Netanyahu's leadership and motives, and despite having already threatened to refuse duty over the government's judicial overhaul plan. That's really interesting that I don't think people necessarily think about. People are still enrolling themselves in the IDF, is basically what they're saying. So you would think if Israelis were concerned about Gaza that they would have an issue given the draft right now. But actually, but it's funny, you're hearing Hamas, and this is why I'm hearing even in that Hamas membership has increased. I will also argue that in this article that IDF enrollment has also increased.
Yeah.
Due to this sentiment as well. Despite the high number of soldiers killed since October 7th, 600, and wounded over 3,000, not including much higher numbers suffering from post-traumatic stress, mothers of soldiers are not protesting the war, a factor that played a significant role in opposition to Israel's occupation of Lebanon and eventual withdrawal. And a change of leadership won't necessarily mean meaningful policy changes. If Benny Gantz, Israel's former defense minister and IDF chief of the general staff, who is polling well against Netanyahu, were to become prime minister, it is unlikely that he would adopt policies regarding the Palestinians that are substantially different from Netanyahu's. In 2019, Gantz released an election campaign video boasting of sending parts of Gaza back to the Stone Age during his term as IDF chief of the general staff in 2014. And today, like Netanyahu, he insists on an invasion of the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where up to 1.5 million local and displaced Palestinians are now concentrated to deal with what they claim will be a final and fatal blow to Hamas. He also rejects unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. Instead, he has at most acknowledged the possibility for Palestinians to have an entity, not a state. Indeed, as defense minister in the short-lived Naftali Bennett government in 2021, Gantz hosted Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in his home, indicated he espoused the military's deep ingrained understanding that keeping that PA operational is a vital Israeli national security interest for maintaining control. The doctrine outlined by the Biden administration to restructure the PA and send it to Gaza, along with creating a political process that will require Israeli concessions toward a Palestinian state as part of a Saudi-Israeli normalization deal, is the only alternative to Israel's protracted destruction and occupation of Gaza currently on the table. Some former Israeli government and security officials have also adopted this approach, since they understand it is the best option for Israel to stem further alienation from the American public and maintain some international legitimacy. A survey among Jewish and Palestinian citizens of Israel in February showed that half would support a political process along these lines. In this sense, some Israelis are at least searching for a pragmatic off-ramp. Whether this idea is realistic is also doubtful. It is unclear if the PA can be reformed sufficiently to regain legitimacy among Palestinians. Likewise, it is unlikely Hamas would disappear completely from the scene in Gaza. Nor does the proposed track outline what sorts of concessions Israel would need to make. but it could at least produce an immediate de-escalation in the form of a ceasefire, which is vital. Either way, it's notable that the U.S. administration is proposing it, not an Israeli leader or politician. As such, the outcome of such a process would depend on how much Israelis and Palestinians respond to a ceasefire over time, and how much the United States and other actors would be prepared to push to make that happen. For now, Israelis are largely not calling for a ceasefire. As long as Netanyahu is in power, the war is almost sure to drag on, along with the risk of mass death and from starvation in Gaza, further regional escalation, and the Israeli public living in shrunken, insecure borders without ever knowing the fate of their loved ones held in Gaza. Putting all their energy into ousting Netanyahu, while understandable, keeps Israelis from assuming responsibility for their complicity in a prolonged military occupation, the destruction of Gaza, and their failure to outline a genuine political path out of the current crisis. In that sense, Netanyahu is a convenient scapegoat. Any thoughts before I move on?
No, I think it sounds about like what we talked about in multiple segments, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, this is blame Netanyahu, and you can still continue to do the problem once it's gone. So,
So I'm going to play this short clip. So this is from Miko Peled. We actually did an interview with him back, I believe, in August of last year, and actually he was featured. We actually featured that interview in a marathon segment of AIN clips pertaining to Palestine on Monday. So go check that out. If not, check out this interview. I think the interview, if I remember correctly, is Israel Does Not Equal Democracy. But he did this interview with Going Underground, which is a Rumble channel. So those of you who don't know, Miko, he's Jewish. He's Israeli, but an anti-Zionist, founder of the Palestine House of Freedom, and he's actually the grandson of Abraham Katz-Nelson, who signed Israel's Declaration of Independence. So he's a big deal. His father was a general in the IDF. So if anyone could speak more into like the Zionist / Israeli occupation, it would be Miko. But he was doing this interview. We're not going to play all of it, but if you do want to watch the whole interview, it is it's Going Underground is the channel, and the interview or the interview is called "Is This the End of Israel and Zionism?" So Miko has something to say regarding the Israeli culture, which kind of relates to the article. So go ahead and we can hear what Miko.
How are people in Israel reacting to ongoing events? Previously, one Labour Party chief in Israel, Merav Mishlo, said Netanyahu and Ben Gvir, the people in power in Tel Aviv right now, helped assassinate Rabin. How close is Netanyahu to assassination?
Well, I don't think he's close to assassination at all. I think he's doing exactly what his constituents want him to do.
Or do they want more?
Well, I'm sure they would. I don't know what more could they possibly do. He's massacring people by as much as humanly I think possible. And so I think he's doing exactly what people want. The only people who oppose him are people that want his seat. But it's not for political or ideological reasons. I mean, the Israeli society, by and large, stands behind the genocide. They've always stood behind the genocide. I mean, this has been going on since Israel was established, and the vast majority of Israeli society always stood behind it. There is some kind of, I think, a sickness that exists in racist, genocidal societies, especially some societies that are raised and brought up and educated to be racist and genocidal. Israelis are certainly not the first. Hopefully, they'll be the last. But that is the reality, and I think Netanyahu seems to be politically, at least, very, very safe, and he's doing exactly what his constituents want.
So
sounds about right.
Yeah, so Miko, even right there, is kind of confirming, like Netanyahu, contrary to what people are saying in mainstream media, is actually doing exactly what his constituents want him to do, if not even more so. And to kind of prove that, if you can go to this next clip. So this is from Professor Collis that I pulled. So this is from the Israel Democracy Institute. So according to the Israel Democracy Institute, 83.4% of Israeli Jews don't think that Israel should take into consideration the suffering of the civilian population in Gaza. Actually, if you can zoom in. So to what extent do you think that Israel should take into consideration the suffering of civilian Palestinian population in Gaza when planning the next phases of fighting there? So I'm going to read the general public. So 40% said not at all. 31% not so much. 9% said quite a lot. 15% said very much. 5% said I don't know. So I wouldn't say an overwhelming majority, but
yeah, I mean, well, 40% plus 40% of the public. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then if you go to the next slide, and that will end it for this segment. So this was also from Professor Collins. I just pulled the article. I'm not sure where he got this from. It looks like The Guardian, given the font. But you can see this was published in 2012. So this article states Israeli poll finds majority would be in favor of apartheid policies. 2/3 say Palestinians should not be allowed to vote if West Bank was annexed, while 3 in 4 favor segregated roads. So Harriet Sherwood in Jerusalem. So if we go down, more than 2/3 of Israeli Jews said that 2.5 million Palestinians living in the West Bank should be denied the right to vote if an area was annexed by Israel, in effect endorsing an apartheid state, according to an opinion poll reported by Haaretz. 3 out of 4 are in favor of segregating roads for Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank, and 58% believe Israel already practices apartheid against Palestinians, the poll found. So this was over a decade ago. So long story short, it's not BIBI that is a problem, it's the culture problem. And so, BIBI is a very convenient scapegoat for what an overwhelming majority of Israelis think in terms of what's happening in Gaza and how much they really want to off Palestinians. I mean, you could see online, like Abby Martin did a documentary several years ago. You can find it on YouTube where she interviews Israelis and they tell her, we need to kill them, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think now, given how people are seeing a lot of the carnage in Gaza right now, especially a lot of these Zionists who are, essentially trying to, or mouthpieces for, the occupation, are trying to modify that language a little bit in terms of making it either avoiding not talking about this at all or kind of blaming, everything else, but maybe, their own ugly hearts in terms of what they really think. But it's very evident, given, what we read and kind of what we're seeing in the polling, what is happening in Gaza, at least among Israelis, is actually quite popular. And BIBI is the only reason that people are having an issue with BIBI is in terms of his lack of concern for the hostages, really. And so that's what people are protesting. It's not what's happening in Gaza. It's the idea that BIBI is willing to put the hostages under the bus in order to off Palestinians. So if that wasn't the issue, that you wouldn't see, the protests that are going on in Tel Aviv, essentially. But that's all I got. Any final thoughts before we end?
No, I'm just wondering, what's on the horizon for this, Like,
what do
this
you
election, well, this election coming up, there's going to be a lot of, like, trying to fix it. I don't know if you remember the Iran hostage negotiation with Reagan. So there's a conspiracy out there that says essentially that was planned so that Jimmy Carter, like, who was originally dealing with it, essentially the minute Reagan was inaugurated, right? That deal happened, right? So, literally like the day he was sworn in, that they let go of the hostages or whatever, and we know it's because they gave them weapons. So, which Reagan then had to come out and say we did. So, so yeah, this next election might be something similar to that, I'm betting. Right?
Sure.
But it's also, BB's gotten blamed before for stuff, and he's more than willing to crucify himself in that regard. So, yeah. Just, interesting subject to look at. So keep your eye out for it. But yeah, anything you want to say before we finish out?
No, just very depressing. But
Yep. Well. Ugh. So this is why we're demonetized, by talking about topics like this. You can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or scan the QR code on your screen. If you're in the live chat, you can put !donate. Chat that way, always appreciated. If you can't do that, you can go like and subscribe. You could hit the share button, but put it out to your social medias. You can leave a comment even. Doing all this engagement helps us beat the suppression, and we appreciate you for helping us out. We're almost at 2K. We're getting there. We're like 30 away, so hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, thanks for watching. All right.
Can you pull up the graph for Jesse's thing?
What graph?
How much?
Oh, yeah. That right there? 96%?
Yeah. So I guess we need around $40.
Yeah.
About. And then we'll hit our goal. So do you think
generous in the last segment?
Yeah. So so we need about $40. So I want to try and hit this tonight.
Sure.
I might as well. So normally I would say I would give my spiel of being like, and I still am very much for it, of being, you're saying, obviously take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your communities. If you cannot give, obviously your likes, your subscribing, and all the things are what we really want and appreciate, especially given that YouTube is not helping us. So really any funding that we're getting is for you. That being said, $40. I'm sure if we have a couple of you just give like $10.
Yeah.
Then we will hit it for tonight, and then Jesse will be able to give Jesse his brand new computer. I really wanted to see if we can get this tonight for Jesse. So
that'd be dope.
So if we're able to hit it before the end of our stream, that would be awesome. So no pressure, but if people are able to, we would really appreciate it. So
also, if you haven't subbed already to Rockfin and Rumble, you're welcome to do so. I will link them in the chat for people. They've not done that already.
Who are these people?
Hey, look at that. There's
look at
$20
that.
The Accord Lord again. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you.
All right.
We're at 98%.
20. So yeah, so we just need $20 more, at least $20. To hit that last one. So
a couple of tens, a 5.
Yeah, 4 of you, $5. $5. So
Yay.
so
anyway,
anyone on Rockfin or Rumble before
not yet.
Segment?
Rockfin seems to not be working for people, so but there's people on Rumble, they're just not using their opposable thumbs. They're lizard people today.
Actually, wait a minute. Technically, we we basically hit it because I think, did we get donations?
Don't know if that's in there or not, or if ones that we already got. So
that's what I'm saying. Like that, we're not including that, but we would basically, assuming that's right, then we only need $5 left.
Yep. $5-10.
Either way, I'm saying. Well, I don't mind going over a little bit.
You know, so
don't mind going over a little bit. Have to pay taxes on the laptop after all. So, but yeah, if you guys are able to give, what is it, 10? At least 10 more docs before the end of tonight. So we will love you forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, are you ready for your last segment?
When you please, yes. So we got James Bond, Daniel Craig. He's there in Palestine with his Aston Martin, back there. We're gonna talk about why I made this image.
Who are these people?
Look at that.
Hey!
Look at that. Look, we did
Thank
it.
you, Mac
We did it.
Yeah.
Yay, we did it.
Thank you.
We met our goal. We did the goal. All right.
You need a clapping thing on the soundboard or something.
Oh, I have.
Do you have one?
I have one of these. Oh no. Yay.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Yep, I got that. So appreciate everyone who helped out with that. Especially Yeti dropped a big check on that, so appreciate you, fam.
Yeah, shout out to our brother Yeti with a huge donation that he gave yesterday towards that. Why we were able to hit it very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
All right. Last story. As we
hold on, Bad Cookies. It's like I only ask that you destroy any of my personal information you may have collected.
I only have like a couple of cookie crumbs left, you know. So, but anyway, all right. So again, British spies in Palestine. We got James Bond here with his Aston Martini. You know, you're wondering why I might have this image. Well,
who are these people?
Hey, look at that. Another dono from Mastermind Hour with $10. Appreciate you, fam. So leaked docs reveal British intelligence secret exploitation of Palestinian refugees. Check the date on that, Care Bear. That's what, May 15th? So, minute ago, right? Not many people talked about this, right? So, luckily we're going to get to that. So, Clarenberg writes, leaked files attained by Mint Press News detail the intensive interest taken in Palestinians both within and without the country by British intelligence operatives and Foreign Office funded and directed cutouts over many years. Collectively, the material leaves little room for doubt that the British government has long sought to covertly surveil, infiltrate, and manipulate Palestinians for maligned ends while exploiting their suffering to serve London's geopolitical objectives. And I doubt it's just London. But that's what we're focused on today. So, throughout the Syrian proxy conflict, British intelligence ran expensive psychological warfare programs targeting the local population and Western citizens. The objective was to destabilize Bashar Assad's government and convince domestic and foreign audiences, including overseas governments' internal bodies, that the Western-backed Free Syrian Army was a moderate, legitimate alternative and flood media globally with pro-opposition propaganda, a corrupt constellation of private contractors staffed by British military veterans and former spies delivered 3 clandestine campaigns. And shout out to Vanessa and Grey Zone and all the people that exposed that when it was happening. So, Innovative Communications and Strategies, aka IncoStrat, was a particularly prolific participation in this effort. The firm was funded by Paul Tilley, Britain's former Minister of Defense, head of communications for West Asia, and Emma Winberg, a longtime MI6 officer who subsequently married now deceased White Helmets founder James Leshmushu. The leaked documents reveal that in Syria, she was tasked with the management and development of a local network of interlocutors, key leaders, and local coordinators. So try to keep those names in your brain as we continue. So this is what they wrote in the leaked document. So the network is able to assist in the development of messages and influence through word of mouth in difficult to reach areas. The knowledge gained through these interactions will generate a contextual understanding that provides the foundation for our communication campaigns, our ability to assess their efforts, and to provide detailed atmospheric reports that inform HMG of the developing situation in Syria. Right? So, Winberg is described as Britain's lead on engagement with the Syrian army opposition in Istanbul, while serving as a Foreign Office political military officer in Turkey from 2013 onwards. She cultivated an extensive range of contacts in north and eastern Syria, meaning she was trusted and respected by moderate and opposition leadership figures. This may account for why Incostrat avidly maintained a perfect record of safety and security for its staff in the country, even while the company secretly operated in areas under ISIS control. What do we know about that, Collin? What do we know about that? Winberg harvested so much crucial intelligence in this role that her resultant insights represented a core contribution to British, European, and U.S. understanding. Keep in mind we share intelligence, right? Thanks to the war on terror. We now share all this info with them, right? So, an assessment of armed groups in Syria. Intriguingly, she was transferred to Istanbul directly from the British consulate in Jerusalem, a vital regional base of operations for MI6. While there, she reported on violent extremist organizations active in Gaza, including during Operation Cloud Pillar in 2012, for which she was commended internally. Cloud Pillar saw Israeli occupation forces massacre almost 200 Palestinian civilians after assassinating high-ranking Hamas leader Ahmad Jabari. This was keeping with MI6's strategy to degrade the capabilities of rejectionists of the pro-Zionist Palestine Authority. When was this, Care Bear? 200 Palestinian civilians dead? November 2012?
Yep.
Colin, I thought it all started on October 7th. I thought that happened. So this was in keeping with MI6 strategy to degrade. Right. So Winberg's close-range view of these events made her a compelling candidate for overseeing London's contribution to the proxy war from the perspective of her employers and British intelligence. Moreover, she was not alone in Incostrat operatives in secretly surveilling Palestinian resistance firsthand. Right? So, one company staffer managed a $25 million small grants program to directly support community stabilization, engage youth, and moderate actors in the Palestinian territory. U.S. control intelligence cut out U.S. aid 2005 to 2007. This placed them on the front line of the Zionist entity's embarrassing defeat by Lebanon's Hezbollah in the summer of 2006 and concurrent military incursion in Gaza. Along the way, they reported on the political, economic, and security situation locally, including extensive reporting during internal instability in Gaza. Meanwhile, another Incostrat operative, CV, boasts that they traveled and studied in Israel and Palestine, focusing on religious political movements, then studied Palestinian refugees in Syria before the uprising. After that, they worked with and trained Syrian activists in several organizations. In a supremely striking feature that multiple Incostrat operatives went straight from intently studying, quote, Palestinian refugees and armed groups to cloak and dagger movements of the moderate Syrian opposition. In this context, what are we to make of the fact that British intelligence cutouts have for many years been heavily active in Lebanon's Palestinian refugee camps? Around 300,000 Palestinian refugees inhabit Lebanon, roughly half of them in camps administered by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA. Living conditions are appalling, with overcrowding, poverty, and rampant unemployment. Discrimination towards Palestinian refugees at both a public and state level is commonplace. This intensified significantly due to untold numbers of displaced people, among them many Palestinians, pouring into Lebanon from neighboring Syria as a result of the grinding 11-year Western proxy war against Damascus. Such a milieu inevitably produces a wider range of grievances among refugees, which can be malignly exploited by British intelligence. Since 2009, Foreign Office contractor ARC, founded and run by MI6 operatives Alistair Harris, operated in Lebanon's 12 Palestinian refugee camps and leaked files the company boasts of its granular understanding of the camp's internal, political, economic, ideological, religious, and everyday dynamics. ARC's voluminous local contracts have access throughout all camps and gatherings. This means that community-level discussions and activities of all residents can be influenced and spied upon as required. So keep this ARC in your head as well. Such everyday real-life insight is augmented by daily monitoring of neighborhood-level WhatsApp groups. What do we talk about, Collin, when we talk about the doctors in Gaza story? What did he say was happening to the tent cities outside the hospital? You remember?
Oh. Well, besides just what I remember specifically was just like the stench, like people just kind of crowded in tight quarters.
Yep.
That's what I remember vividly from that article.
So it also mentioned in that article that the tents had numbers assigned to them, and that there were WhatsApp groups that were like monitoring all the information of those tents for, you know, helping refugee purposes.
So it's essentially doing what the Gaza Health Ministry was doing.
Yes.
Before every hospital has basically been destroyed, so they have no way of. So the people are doing it this way, a little more bare bones, but they're kind of taking on that.
But they're using WhatsApp groups, right, to do so.
Right.
So, which this is telling us, such everyday real life insight is augmented by daily monitoring of neighborhood level WhatsApp groups. Right? So they're spying on those. Meanwhile, local engagement with a social media platform created by ARC called Nastopia is heavily monitored. The page, run by a 24-strong team of ARC-trained youth reporters, is intended to increase demand for community engagement and improved conditions. Among camp residents, it promotes covertly Foreign Office-financed projects in camps as success stories. We're serving as a forum for online and offline discussion about social injustices and virtual space to talk about topics considered taboo in camps. ARC has spearheaded various community initiatives elsewhere in the offline realm. These include repairing and restoring streets and cemeteries, recycling, promoting small businesses, providing welfare to disadvantaged and disabled residents, managing nurseries and daycare centers, and even launching a local coffee shop. The leaked files describe this as a popular place for youth to gather and promote civic engagement in their community and a shared Palestinian identity that bridges factional differences. So, insidious surveillance and manipulation components of these projects aside, one might reasonably argue that given the harsh internal environments of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, any effort to regenerate and improve conditions for residents of all ages, create a sense of community, is a net positive. Yet, the ultimate purpose of these projects is to create a secret army of anti-government activists, which can be activated to stir up trouble if and when British intelligence wishes. Of course, the leaked documents do not frame that objective in such terms. One file refers to the value of highlighting success stories in the camps as enhancing the audience's confidence in their own ability to contribute to social change. In other words, encouraging Palestinian refugees to take matters into their own hands. This intention is articulated far more emphatically in a leaked March 2019 study conducted by ART. The document identified a segment of Beirut's diverse population that could be united in opposition to Lebanon's government and therefore mobilized to effect positive social change. On their own initiative, the ideal target group was comprised of individuals who disavowed violence but not other forms of contentious politics and could be influenced to engage in certain behaviors such as protests, leafleting campaigns, and other community initiatives. The analysis explicitly characterized Palestinian refugees as an important part of such an effort. Therefore, ART pledged to both covertly and overtly promote the message that change is possible and ordinary citizens have a role to play in achieving change. Through propaganda campaigns and civil society initiatives, these would highlight where change has been achieved or where threats to Lebanon's stability are encountered. In turn, the broader population of Lebanon will be well educated on how barriers to reform can be overcome via direct popular action. 7 months after ART produced this study, large-scale protests engulfed the streets of Beirut. Western media immediately spoke of revolution in the country. Few outlets acknowledged that the unrest had begun in July of that year when thousands of refugees inhabiting several camps commenced mass demonstrations demanding reforms to local employment laws that barred them from numerous professions. Coincidentally, in one leaked document, ART boasts of how the company takes pride in ensuring refugees recruited to its illicit schemes receive annual leave, sick leave, and health insurance, despite this not being legally necessary due to local legislation discriminating against Palestinians. Lebanon was a critical organization nucleus for the Syrian opposition, which ART directly and embedded with before the revolution started. The document circulated among anti-Assad elements in Beirut in 2011, secretly intercepted by Syrian security services, set out a blueprint for events to the uprising to date, and precisely that would subsequently transpire in Damascus. The opposition proposed convening mass demonstrations in every major Syrian city, so security forces will lose control of all regions, be taken unaware, and become exhausted and distracted. This, along with honest officers and soldiers joining the ranks of the revolution, would make toppling down the regime straightforward. Any crackdown of these protests was forecast to precipitate a Western military strike a la Libya. The opposition foresaw major news outlets playing a significant role. The document writes, everyone should be confident that with the continuation of demonstrations today, media channels will have no choice but to cover the events. Al Jazeera will be late due to considerations of mutual interest, but we have Al Arabia and Western media channels who will come forward, and we will all see the change in tone and cover the events and demonstrations will be aired on the channels. They will have wide coverage. The Assad government did not choose to publicly publicize this bombshell file for unclear reasons. It only became publicly available and translated into English through the work of the Commission for International Justice and Accountability. The organization was spun out of ARC in May 2011 to prosecute Syrian officials for war crimes. Its first act was to covertly train opposition activists in basic international criminal and humanitarian law in service of a domestic justice process in a future transitional Syria. As the foreign fomented crisis escalated into an all-out proxy war, CIJA began employing extremist groups to smuggle sensitive documentation out of abandoned government buildings in opposition-occupied areas of Syria, paying these factions, including Al-Nusra Front and ISIS, vast sums for their services, while generating enormous amounts of fawning media coverage. The commission convicted just 2 Syrian officials of war crimes, and only after the pair voluntarily defected and made numerous incriminating statements to their Western handlers. Anything to add, Collin? Are you keeping up?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I will admit it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's well, it just goes to show how imperial. Well, I think we think of America in terms of what's happening in quite frequently, and given that we live here, it makes the most sense. But you know, but this is not surprising considering, you know, we talked about what happened with Kwame Ture. Like, it has to be over 2 years ago. I think we did a segment on him where essentially, like, he was kind of being targeted, you know, by the British government in light of, you know, his appeal given the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement and how it's kind of coalescing a lot of those groups and like the Black communities, like basically across countries, you know, given what he was saying and like how, like, you know, the British, I don't want to say they were MI6, but like, you know, but he was targeted, you know, by the British government in a similar way, you know, like as this. So this really shouldn't be surprising, you know, all the same, but it's just the idea of, you know, actually having a spy network in connection with this and what's happening in Palestine that is also being kind of infiltrated in this too. So it just kind of shows how deep this really goes in terms of how imperialism is involved in all.
Yep. Well, there's only a few more slides, so I'll finish it up. So this is essentially them talking about the failure, of course, attributed to the collapse of the British and U.S. regime change project series, right? So that's what this is all around. So, indeed, the success of CIJA's business model was wholly contingent on the violent overthrow of Assad and his government. The fact that the commission was founded before the Syrian Arab army was even formally deployed to Damascus amply demonstrates the CIJA and ARC had substantial grounds to believe that decisive Western intervention would be forthcoming at the earliest stage of the peaceful revolution. Per the intercepted document, so too did opposition activists in Lebanon in May 2011, same month CIJA was founded, which of course referenced an ongoing NATO airstrikes on Libya. While such intervention didn't arrive as expected, arms and fighters promptly began flowing from Tripoli to Syria. After that, in direct coordination with MI6, many insurgents were former members of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group who were freed from prison 4 years earlier by Gaddafi after an intervention from one of the group's founders, Norman Benjamin. Benjamin claimed to have rejected political violence, embraced pacifism and democracy, and pledged to de-radicalize the jailed LIFG fighters in return for their release. In 2010, he became president of the UK government-funded Quilliam Foundation, the world's first counter-extremism think tank. In this position, he was instrumental in securing high-level defections from Gaddafi's government during the Civil War. The organization avowed contribution to the NATO effort intensified existing suspicions about the special interest it might be serving. After Quilliam's shutdown in April 2021, veteran journalist Ian Cobain made a startling disclosure. The foundation had been secretly established by the Office for Security and Counterterrorism, OSCT, shadowy British intelligence agency. London spies had initially planned to fund the venture covertly, with money appearing to come in from a Middle Eastern benefactor, but channeled by MI6. Instead, overt government financing was granted, a move eventually judged within Whitehall to have been a mistake, an OSCT source lamented. They write, should have run it from within the agency. They do this sort of stuff all the time, and you never find out. So, Palestinian-focused civil society organizations and initiatives are frequently constructed by British intelligence without participants or broader local populations learning the true sponsors and purposes they serve. With Israel openly planning to reconstruct a politically moderate, Hamas-free Gaza post-genocide, it is incumbent to reflect on how any proposed replacement leaders will almost inevitably be, one way or another, graduates of MI6-sponsored programs and therefore British assets, whether knowingly or not. That's why I brought the story. So, you know, keep your eyes on a swivel out there, is all I'm saying. You know, do a little questioning of the systems in place. So, yeah. Anything to add? No. Well, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. You can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. Help us out and give us a little donation that way by scanning the QR code on your screen, putting !donate in the chat. If you can't do that, you can always just like and subscribe, hitting the share button or commenting. That kind of engagement really helps us beat the suppression. We're almost at 2K, so definitely subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Alright. Let me check Rockfin and Rumble one last time before we go to
Indies
I've got
sending me announcements right now.
Cool. And I will pull this up for you. So there is the calendar for this week. If you would like that up. And no one on the Rockfin, no one on the Rumble. Cool. So what do we got? Coming up Thursday, Politically Homeless, I think.
So tomorrow, Politically Homeless with Yeti and Himbo.
Yeah.
All Canadian version.
Yep.
The Canadians are taking over.
Blame Canada.
Crab out. Friday, Tara will be doing interviews from the conference that she's at right now. So that's at 2.
Yep.
Eastern.
I do believe so.
Angel in the afternoon at 7 Eastern.
Yep.
Jesse Clip Show at 10:30 Eastern.
Me and Indy, this might be changed
to rerun.
Yep. Go ahead.
What's that?
You're saying the thing I'm about
Indy's
to say.
planning to rerun American Traditions show from last night.
Yeah.
Just clean it up a little bit, and so basically it's just just a repeat from Tuesday's show. Saturday wrestling at 8 with Angel. 10:30. Wait, what is it, 11?
11.
11. Snow Himbo Gaming. Sunday, Angel will be going Angel in the afternoon with Joe Bagaha, I guess. There may be another Politically Homeless show with Greg and Himbo. Not sure yet. Monday, we how do we miss that?
Sunday.
You're basically gonna replay.
I do believe so. And
well,
we can
Sunday, since Sunday, Indy is gonna be in New York with Jesse.
Yeah.
We'll do Dissonance show.
So we might be rerunning the one we're gonna have to pre-record this week.
Well,
So we'll see.
Indy said Monday. He said Monday he's going to be running, so I'm not sure if he meant
one of the two.
My guess is probably Monday, since he's probably going to come in late Sunday night to not be able to run it. So my guess is going to be Monday. He's going to the stream that flaked on you this week. So as far as I know, nothing on next Tuesday, and then we'll be back on again.
Cool.
Next Wednesday.
We did a clip marathon to test out some restreams. So if you haven't checked out, some of our stuff on Palestine, it's a big long stream you can just put on in the background while you're doing other stuff. So that should be up on the channel.
And actually, we didn't even play everything because it cut out.
And that's not even all we have, dude. Like, we could make 19 of those streams at 12 hours a piece. So, we have quite the backlog on Palestinian content. So go check that out. But yeah, I think that's it.
So thank you all so much. We've hit our goal for Jesse's laptop. So thank you guys.
Nope.
No China. So thank you guys very, very, very much. You guys gave generously and consistently, and we'll be very happy to pass off this money for Jesse's, and not only for streaming, but not only for to create music with, but obviously to stream. So now he's able to get better programming, so that way he looks more crisper than he is, and is able to utilize some more tech, so he will look even better. So thank you guys for that. So appreciate you guys, and I know Jesse will appreciate it as well. I think actually this is a great way to celebrate him going to New York, actually. So over
if you're in the New York area,
so thank you guys so much.
Hopefully you enjoy that Two Disney
Nice
show
to
with
hear this
Jesse.
works.
But yeah, you get it.
Guys,
it doesn't work for me. It was only a Collin superpower.
It's only a Care Bear thing.
Yeah,
that's my Care Bear stare thing.
Yep. So anyway, as always, kids, it was a bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone.
We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Bye, have a great time.
you